I know it has been a journey for us to get here, so kindly turn on your cameras. Make sure that your mic is also mute. So for those who are joining, my name is Esther Wanjiru Midamo. I am a Kenyan born, but I'm currently living in Germany. I am studying my master's in sustainable international agriculture. I have worked in the agribusiness field, both in Kenya and Uganda. And I'm really excited to be your moderator for today. I am also the campus director for Halt Prize in Göttingen University, and I'm a co-founder and director of Biocylinders Africa Limited. So thank you for joining today. And allow me to introduce our esteemed panelists and our guest speakers. So first up, we start with our first panelist, Tatohatsi Rafolo. She is an environment and renewable energy system consultant. She also has a bachelor, MSc in sustainable energy at the National University of Lesotho. She has a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science from the National University of Lesotho also. And Tatahotsi is a trained environmentalist and has vast experience in the construction sector as an environment manager. She has developed environment, social health, and safety management plans for various projects, including the administration and performance and monitoring on site. She is very familiar with stakeholder engagement and relationship management, as well as reporting for both local and international audiences. She also undertakes renewable energy systems audit and sizing for residential and commercial purposes. Our second panelist for today is Tanda Daudi Rabainu. He is a supervisor and engineer with Wanda Technologies Limited in Nigeria, a renewable and energy and networking company, and is also training and a technical administrator and also a consultant with CRS. Our third panelist for today is Ebenezer Anyadiego. He's an educator with over 10 years experience in teaching, and he holds an NSc and bachelor's in mathematics and education, as well as computer science. He's also, he has studies in the Institute of Ecumenical Education in Nigeria, as well as the Enugu State University of Science and Technology. He's a STEM educator, and he has worked in the capacities of head of science department, school laboratory attendant, administrator, and as principal as well. He has also volunteered under the Nigeria Federal Teachers Scheme, Nigeria Social Investment Program, and Teach for Nigeria, focusing on teaching in underserved school communities across Nigeria. Ebenezer as well is an ICT and AI expert, a data analyst, a project team leader, and a global STEM trainer. He has received additional certification from prestigious organizations like Deloitte, Teach for All, Global Network, AFS Intercultural Program, and furthermore, he's an SDG advocate and a climate education champion certified by Teach for All, IDEV Africa, and SDG Academy. So as you can see today, we really have quite experienced people on this topic as our panelists. And this takes me to the man of the hour, who I am also honored for him to be my friend. I have worked with him when I was in Kenya, and I must say that he is the right person for this job. So introducing our guest speaker, Kevin Moranga, all the way from Kenya. He is a research scientist, a mycologist from Plant Village, Kenya, and he has a background as well in forestry and environmental sciences, with also a 4 years experience working in forestry, environmental, and clean energy sectors. And he is as well an SDG advocate. So keep typing in the chat. Mr. Moranga, take it away.
Thanks, Esther, for the wonderful presentation in terms of introducing us to the congregation. I must say that I'm honored to be a part of this workshop, having worked with you previously, like you said, in Kenya. And I'm also excited to talk about energy conservation technologies, and in this case, being our topic, talking about biomass energy conservation technologies, having worked in the energy sector as well as forestry, having in mind that forests actually account for a huge chunk of a source of biomass energy in terms of wood and of course animals living in forests. So thank you so much, Esther. And right away, walk into my presentation. As you've heard, my name is Kevin Moranga. I'm a mycologist. I'm a research scientist in mycology, working for Plant Village, a research organization. It's an international organization, parented in the USA, but I'm currently working from Kenya. We have different branches of the organizations working across the globe. We have Burkina Faso, we have Tanzania, our neighbors Uganda. We also have Nigeria, because I've heard that we've got panelists from Nigeria. We also have Plant Village in Nigeria. We also have Plant Village in Nepal, and so on. So it's exciting to talk to a myriad of people from across the globe about matters affecting our globe in terms of biomass energy conservation technologies. And in this, we'll also be talking about conversion technologies, because when you talk about energy conservation, it's simply the efficient use of energy. And before I continue, I must also say that I have my colleague here joining. I think I've seen Eunice here. So it's also a pleasure to have her with us. So before I kick into the presentation, I'd like to request Esther to help me share your screen. I think you have the presentation with you. Would you please do that?
I would need a second. Just give me a second to do that because it's on another device, which I'm not currently using. Christine, I'm going to share the document to you. Would you mind sharing the content of it?
Yes, please, you can share it with me.
Absolutely, just a second.
Yeah, I really appreciate, because I'm having trouble with the machine. It suddenly started updating itself, so I cannot really share the screen.
No worries. Let us work on it in a few minutes. And yeah, Christine, I hope you have received it.
Yes, I have. So let me share shortly.
All right, great.
Yes, yeah, as Christine prepares to share the screen.
Yeah, guys, keep typing on the screen. I can see that people are saying I'm very excited for today's conversation. I am as well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to be very informative. Yeah, and please feel free to share your thoughts on the chat. Yeah.
So I'm going to have 30 minutes of presenting to you. And later on, I understand that you're going to have a Q&A session with the panelists and everyone on board.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, so please ask every one of us to be keen so that we have a substantial contribution to this wonderful topic, as well as questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Esther and Christine. So the theme for our presentation is biomass energy conservation technologies. This is under the Clean Energy Advocates Workshop Series. And straight into the introduction, just before we go into there, we saw that in our banner, there was something about the SDGs, and this one touches on our Sustainable Development Goals, number 7, which talks about affordable clean energies. So biomass is any organic matter that is wood, crops, seaweed, animal, and waste that can be used to, as an organic energy source. And with the ever-increasing environmental concerns and the rush to meet the UN's sustainable SDGs, it has been an elusive and uphill task, to try and find a single source of energy that may be completely replace the fossil fuels. And speaking about fossil fuels, it's been, a conversation across the globe. We know we have the carbon footprints across every other nation. We had the Paris Agreement where, each and every nation playing a part in the agreement agreed to the agreement of the 2015 made in Paris about the carbon footprints, the offsets. These are for the nations, producing more carbon that they can actually offset, and also for the nations that offset more carbon that they can actually produce. And this is majorly in Africa. So fossil fuels primarily include petroleum, natural gas, and coal. And moving on, we see that energy derived from the biomass and heat generation. Now, speaking about green energy, Africa ranks among the top in terms of the world continents, in terms of using clean energies, producing and use of clean energies. Speaking about hydropower, speaking about geothermal energy, Africa tops, and in this case, my home country, Kenya, comes atop. And as we move forward, we'll look at points scored by each and every nation in terms of trying to keep up with the agreements in terms of producing and use of clean energies, and trying to do away with fossil fuels. We know the damage that they can cause. We've talked about not even just talking about, all of us have heard about greenhouse gases emissions. We've had discussions surrounding carbon, nitrogen. So it's a real concern to the world. And each and everyone has to play a part in terms of incorporating these technologies to try and make sure that we kick out fossil fuels and use the available biomass to produce energy efficiently and productively. So moving along, you also see that there is such gaps in terms of trying to find new technologies and the economical limitations. Let's look at a case study of perhaps SpaceX being run by Elon Musk. There's a lot of investment in trying to, we saw his launch of the $100 million X Prize for anyone who will come up with the best formula to kick out carbon. The competition is on. There has been stages, and gladly, Plant Village, the organization that I work for, was one of the beneficiaries in terms of winning the student prize of $1 million. That's, I think, 2 years ago. But now we are moving to the final stages where I think Elon Musk will announce the winner of the $100 million prize for the team or group or organization or individual who will come up with the best formula of eliminating carbon. So right now we can, in this slide, we are seeing various biomass energy sources. We have sewage, we have municipal solid waste. I'm a little bit under the weather, so will excuse my throat as I try and clear it as I present. So we have animal residues. In this case, we'll be talking about biogas. Moving on, we have industrial residues. We have forestry, crops, and residue. This is where wood comes in. We have agricultural crops and residue. We'll see how Plant Village utilizes agricultural biomass to produce something known as biochar, which I think we've heard something about it. And moving on to the next slide, we have the statistics about biomass. Where does the world stand in terms of the use of clean energies? So biomass is the world's 4th largest source of energy. And why is it 4th? The question is, who are the first 3? First 3 are the fossil fuels, petroleum, natural gas, and coal. So you see, we have a long way to go in terms of trying to beat the use of fossil fuels as a source of energy. Now, moving on, we see that in developed countries, biomass supplies approximately 8 to 15% of the society's energy supplies as electricity, heat, and fuels. Now, 8 to 15% is quite, a small ratio and number, meaning that 85% is attributed to fossil fuels. So what does this have to say? Developed countries still have a long way to go. And that's why if you go back to the X Prize, you'll find that developed countries, in this case, the Americas, Europe, and Asia, they account for the world's largest emissions in terms of carbon. China tops alongside the US. But come down to Africa, you find that we emit less and less carbon as compared to everyone else, but we suffer more. Now look at the numbers. coming down to developed countries, and these are mostly found in Africa, they account to about 40 to 50% in the use of biomass supplied energy, be it electricity, be it heat, and be it fuels. So what does the future has to say about the use of biofuels? It is anticipated that nearly 33 to 50% of primary energy consumption in the world could be met in 2030 by biomass. 2030 is just 5 years from now, but you see 33 to 50%, we still have a long way to go. So these are the statistics surrounding the usage and utilization of biomass across the world. We've seen the numbers in developed countries. There's the North and the South, I think mostly North America, because South America are still, underdeveloped developing countries, and they account for about 40 to 50% of this. Now, moving on to the next slide, I want to look at what is energy conservation. Now, energy conservation is the effort to reduce wasteful energy consumption by using fewer energy services. Now, we've seen companies, especially automotive manufacturers, come up with technologies to try and conserve energy. You go to the case study of Sweden. In this case, the automotive maker known as Scania. They've made quite advancements in terms of technological advancements, trying to, minimize energy losses in their production. And that's why you see they've really improved in terms of trying to make very powerful engines, because energy is being used efficiently. But now, how do they transform this into clean energies? You still find that much as they're trying to conserve this energy, of course, from fossil fuels, because a lot of petroleum is being used, whatever that is coming out as nitrous oxides and carbon, and they're still polluting our environment. So it's still a concern. So then, how does conservation for them? How do they factor in conservation in their production? We'll not delve into that. We'll just move on and see how stay on course with our biomass and see how do we then move from conserving this type of energy to actually bringing in these biofuels, not really biofuels, but now fossil fuels, and kicking them out and making sure that now energy is conserved around all these types of fuels. Now, energy conservation can be achieved through efficient use of energy, which has some advantages, including a reduction in SDGs and a smaller carbon footprint. These footprints are very expensive. You look at big companies like Coca-Cola and how much they're investing in their carbon footprint, how much they're investing in terms of trying to offset the carbons that they're emitting into the atmosphere. Now, I think the last statement also talks about reduction of waste and losses in terms of trying to improve efficiency through technological upgrades, improving operations and maintenance, changing users' behaviors through user profiling. Now, user behaviors, you've seen countries, moving from using fuel-based engines to, riding to work, in terms of trying to just cut down on the carbon footprint. This accounts for user behaviors, and how are they being integrated in now, conservation of energy now from biofuels or biomass, and so on. So we move on to the conservation technologies now, because now it's a whole thing. We have biomass, we have energy, and then we have conservation, and then we have technologies. Now, biomass could be sourced from a variety of raw materials, as we've seen. We have wood, and we have manure from animals. We have fractions of organic waste products, like sewers and plastics, and of course, agricultural crops. Now, as a form of renewable energy, they have the advantages of easy storage, transportation, flexible. Christian, please go back. Yeah. Transportation, flexible load utilization, and versatile applications. Versatile applications mean that these types of fuels, this type of biomass can be used across so many platforms. Now, the aim of this presentation is to provide an overview of thermochemical and biological mass conservation technologies that are being employed currently. Now, thermochemical and biochemical are the two types or two forms of biomass energy conservation. Now, we move from conservation to conversion. Why? These are two words that they are not used interchangeably, but they are correlated. Why do we conserve? Why do we, convert? Because conservation and conversion are interrelated. We convert in order to conserve. That's where efficiency comes in. Now, that's what I talk about now, the aim of this presentation, giving an overview, just a summary of thermochemical and biochemical biomass conversion technologies that are employed to ensure that now these biomass energies are efficiently used. That means minimal waste. We move on to the next slide. Now, I'd like you to skip this slide and move to the next one. We'll come back to this. This is just a summary of the two. Thank you. Now, type number one of biomass conservation technology is conversion technology is thermochemical conversion. Now, there are two keywords here, thermo and chemical. Now, whenever you hear thermo, it's something to do with temperatures. So thermochemical conversion encompasses thermal breakdown of organic components of biomass produced by fuels obtained by various procedures. For example, direct combustion, pyrolysis, gasification, and thermochemical liquefaction. Now, I'd like to discuss these four separately. And give me a minute. Yes. Now, thermochemical methods. These are the major options within thermochemical biomass conversion processes, which include, of course, combustion, gasification, pyrolysis, and liquefaction. Number one, I'd like to start with gasification. Now, gasification has to be one of the oldest methods of biomass conversion, dating back to the year 1798 in England, where it was first used, actually France and England. Now, the technology did not come into its limelight until maybe 6 years later, where the gasification process continued flourishing until, again, 30 years later, when now natural gas from oil fields was discovered, dating back to the Middle East, and later African countries such as Nigeria, Egypt, and so on. So this is an old process that has been in place. But you see, since the discovery of fossil fuels, not so much has been done in terms of technological advancements, because people always give you, tell you, why would I struggle so much yet? I have ready petroleum at the gas stations. We have natural gas gas stations too. We have coal mines still in operation. So this is one of the limitations that is hindering huge developments in terms of technologies that are used to actually convert this biomass into, clean energy. Now, generally, biomass gasification is an endothermic thermochemical conversion. A lot of heat is used here. And solid biomass in this case is used, we use gasifying agents such as air, steam, or carbon dioxide. And the process is carried out at temperatures between 800 and 1000 degrees Celsius. Now, if you convert that into farads, but in Kenya, we use a lot of, degrees Celsius. Number two, I'd like us to talk about type number two is gasification. Well, there is one major type of gasification known as hydrothermal gasification. And in this case, a lot of water is being used as pressure. So hydrothermal gasification is a biomass treatment that involves the use of water at high temperatures and pressures. Now, when you go back to the diagram that we skipped, we'll have a look at it and how this happens. Not now, but we'll come back to that. Thanks. Now, another form of thermochemical conversion is pyrolysis. Now, pyrolysis is defined as the thermal depolymerization of organic matter in the presence of nitrogen or absence of oxygen. Now, coming back to the organization that I work for, we talked about biochar in the beginning. To obtain biochar, as we look at the diagram back, we'll see that to obtain biochar, heat is used in absence of oxygen, and the process here is pyrolysis. So the polymeric substances, the pyrolysis is an exothermic reaction with heat requirements that ranges between 207 to 434 kilojoules per kg, of which many wood-based and agricultural biomasses are heated. So pyrolysis is widely used on wood products and agricultural products, which can be combusted in the absence of oxygen or very little amounts of oxygen, or in the presence of nitrogen for that matter. And then I'd like us also to talk about another form of thermochemical conversion is known as torrefaction. Now, torrefaction is a new term, not quite used, but this is a slow and a mild pyrolysis process that is usually carried out at low temperatures of between 200 to 300 degrees Celsius. Now, pyrolysis also has 3 stages. We have the fast, mild, or intermediate, and also slow pyrolysis. The difference between these 3 is the amount of temperature being applied during pyrolysis. So the first one, the fast pyrolysis, there's a lot of temperature being applied between 450 to 600 degrees Celsius. That's too hot. Intermediate has to be between 300 to 500. And then you have now torrefaction or slow pyrolysis, which is actually now below 300 degrees Celsius. And finally, we talk about combustion, which is also another form of thermochemical conversion of biomass. And in this process, combustion is actually widely applied biomass conversion technology that was functional to a sizable portion of human race since the advent of human civilization. This dates back to the Stone Age. Combustion, the use of fire, simple fires. So it has been as old as time, but it's still used. But with technological advancements, we no longer use, wood fire or something like that, lighting matches. We have technological advancements that now still use combustion as one of the forms of converting biomass thermochemically. Now, I want us to move to number 2, the next slide, which should be biochemical methods. These are, thanks. Please go back. The diagram that you just left. Yeah, this is an illustration of a thermochemical conversion of biomass. So at the top, we have biomass pretreatment. This is crushing, drying, cutting into pieces, etc. And then the next step is, pre-treated biomass. Now you look at these numbers, you see a lot of temperature and a lot of pressure being applied. We have combustion that we've talked about, which is as old as time. We have gasification, we have pyrolysis and liquefaction, where a lot of water is being used in this case. And then just under pyrolysis, you see the biochar that I've just spoken about. And also pyrolysis can also produce bio-oils. In this case, I think this is one of the oldest processes used to produce palm oils. I think my people from Nigeria would best explain that. But I think pyrolysis is one of the processes. And then under combustion, you have heat and power as one of the end products. But under gasification, pyrolysis, and liquefaction, you have fuel gas as one of the end products. And finally, you have energy vectors, which is now what form of energy is being produced from all these processes. We have power, we have liquid biofuels, like I think this is the same. And then you have hydroxides as products also. And then you have chemical alcohols, like methanol, propanol. I think the formulas are there. So these are majorly the products of thermochemical conversion of these biomasses. And each has a different degree of efficiency because the level of efficiency of combustion is not just the same as pyrolysis. These two have difference in terms of the amount of temperature applied, the amount of pressure applied. So we have losses in between or along the processes. Now, I'd like us to move now to biochemical conversion. And under biochemical conversion of biomass, this one now involves the microbial world. Biochemical conversion of biomass uses bacteria, microorganisms, and enzymes to break down biomass into gaseous or liquid fuels, such as biogas and bioethanol. Now, biogas is quite popular at homes and big organizations. It's a trend from time immemorial when, people started looking for, people started exploring other forms of energy at home. Now, the most popular biochemical technologies are anaerobic digestion or biomethanation and fermentation. Now, anaerobic digestion, I think this is where you talk about limited oxygen being used and a lot of nitrogen. So anaerobic digestion is a series of chemical reactions during which organic materials such as human waste and also animal waste is decomposed. And through this decomposition, the metabolic pathways of naturally occurring microorganisms in an oxygen-depleted environment or a nitrogen-rich environment. Now, if we move to the next slide, we'll look at the different stages through which biochemical conversion process occur. We have the first stage, the orange box, you have the complex organic material, in this case, manure, either from human waste or animal waste. So the first phase is liquefaction, and the agent here is the acid-forming bacteria. Now, these are simple organics in this stage. And then the next stage, we have volatile acids, in which the main agent here is methane-forming bacteria. And now this is the second phase, which is gasification. And at the end of this process, well, if you look at the arrow down here, this takes some time, between 4 to 20 days, depending on the product or the feedstock. And feedstock in this case, I mean human waste or animal waste, or a combination of both, which I'm not sure has been explored really. And at the end of it all, we have two products, that is methane and carbon dioxide. Now that forms the biogas. And then we have low odor nutrient-rich liquid. At the end of this, you also find a lot of farm inputs from these processes, but we'll not look at that because it's not our agenda for today. Having looked at those two processes, what are the future prospects? This is a whole topic, but I'm just trying to summarize. But if I had some little time, I'd like to go back to biochemical and talk about some few processes here. Under biochemical, we have few processes here that occur. Number one is digestion. Now, in digestion, we're talking about anaerobic processes. We have anaerobic digestion, which is short form or AD. Most people refer to it as AD. Is one of the most sustainable and cost-effective technology for lignocellulosic. Now, lignocellulosic is just another term for wood products or for timber, the woody part of a plant or a tree. It is majorly formed by what we call lignocelluloses. So when you talk about AD being one of the most sustainable and cost-effective technologies for lignocellulosic and other form of waste treatment for energy recovery from biofuels. Now, this process does not only minimize the amount of waste, it also transforms such waste into bioenergy, which we've been talking about. And also, digestion, the digestates, which are the end products after the whole process are produced, they are rich in nutrients, which can serve as fertilizer for agricultural processes. This is what I was talking about a few seconds ago, that most of these end products can also be used as farm inputs. Africa being the home to agriculture and being the backbone of production in Kenya, a lot of fertilizers comes from, these processes. Now, under combustion, we have also different processes happening under it. It's quite long, but I'd like just to give it a pass for now. I'd just like us to understand it's one of the biochemical, and a lot of enzymes are used in these processes. And methane and propanol being one of the end products. Another process under biochemical is known as fermentation. Now, if you look at digestion and fermentation, you obviously think of the microbial agents, the bacteria, the enzymes, and all those. So fermentation is a biological process that is commonly facilitated by the secretion of enzymes sourced from microorganisms, which converts simple sugars to low molecular weight structures such as alcohols and acids. It's a long process too, but at the end of it all, you have glucose, you have xylose, sugar, beet, and all those are products of fermentation as another process that is used to convert biomass into energy. Now, having talked about those two processes, I'd like now to talk about, what are the future prospects of biomass? What gaps exist? This way you get to ask questions. And this way you get to look at the case study of your countries. In this case, I'd like to give a small summary of my home country, Kenya. And in this case, Kenya tops African countries in renewable energy uptake. This is a report released in 2023 or in 2024. The report for this year, I think it's not yet out. And in summary, the average score for the sub-Saharan African region is 49.2. When I was talking about the different scores for different countries or different regions, these are the key points that we talk about. So the average score for the sub-Saharan African region is 49.2, averagely for the 54 countries, having witnessed an 11% growth over the past decades. This is between 2013 and 2023. There's been an 11% growth in the usage and utilization of renewable energy. So the Kenyan efforts is to enhance the regulatory environment on energy type to shift are also recognized in this report. And I'd like to quote something. Well, before I quote it, there's a report also from the World Economic Forum, WEF. I think most of us have heard about it. It shows that the continent has the highest number of countries with double-digit performance in the period under review. So this is the past decade, 2013 to 2023. And it also tracks the performance of 120 countries globally, and also interrogates the Energy Transition Index, the ETI, of each country for the period between 2014 and 2023. I'm mentioning this because I'm also an expert in carbon taxes and also emissions trading systems, where we get to actually, survey and audit organizations in terms of their, emissions and how are they trading these emissions. Are they offsetting their carbon emissions? How are they doing it? Where are they taking these funds? How do they invest them in terms of now reducing their carbon footprints as an organization, or as a government, or as a country? So Kenya ranks number 46 globally, and it leads African countries in terms of the ETI. The ETI we mentioned is that it's the Energy Transition Index, simply how we're moving from fossil fuels to clean energy sources, like the use of biomass, like as we've been discussing. Now, Kenya's score is at 57.8, followed by Morocco, Namibia, Mauritius, and Cote d'Ivoire, that way. Now, the founder and director of PowerShift Africa, whose name is Mohamed Adao, said the following about Africa: that by harnessing our abundant renewable resources and attracting the necessary investments, we can power our development, address historical challenges, and in this case, we can talk about, the exploitation of Africa's wealth in terms of minerals and the sources of these clean energies. And of course, he continues to say that we can lead the world in transitioning to 100% renewable energy. Now, leading to 100%, we saw the figures as we started, talking about 8 to 15% in developed countries, 40 to 50% in, developing countries, and then 33 to 50% averagely by 2030. But now when you come to talk about 100% renewable energy, there's a lot of work to be done. And that's why we talk about future prospects, including improving conversion efficiencies, developing new biomass feedstocks, the conventional beef stocks. Feedstocks include wood products and agricultural products, in this case, waste, like when you harvest your corn, that forms the feedstock. And then you also need to integrate biomass energy into our smart grids and sustainable energy systems. Now, this guy further says that Africa's energy potential is our gift, and it's time to unlock it. We need to push for a just and equitable transition away from fossil fuels to a greener and more sustainable future. Now he says that let's seize the moment and not follow in the footsteps of the historical polluters. We all know who are the historical polluters, and it's time to make a decision. Do we conform or do we change for the better? Now it's also time to make the 21st century an African century. It's simply the time for Africa to take the leap. And I'm really proud of what Esther is doing, because she's one of the good examples of, Africans taking the leap, being us proud out there, and everyone else, of course, here. We've been, in contact for quite some time on what she does, what should be done, discussing ideas and all that. This forms part of the dream. This forms part of the transition to 100% renewable energy. So it starts with us, because we cannot be talking about an average score of 49.2, while you have countries at 60 and 70. So that means there's still a lot of work to be done, a lot of research to be done, a lot of action plans and real action to be taken. So yeah, as I conclude, I'd like to move on to the last slide, which has my final word for this. There are a lot of words there. Maybe, I'll just summarize them. Now, currently the use of lignocellulosic biomass, and this I said is just that part of wood. It's just wood. As a raw material for the generation of bioenergy has received a considerable attention for the development of sustainable ways for production of energy. Most of the researches conducted for biomass conversion technologies heads towards discovery of advanced ways to produce energy fuels so as to tackle its shortage and that of the world, which is facing. Indeed, the world is facing a shortage. That's why you have rich people who can't actually think of better ideas, give out money for other people to think for them. And it's a good thing also, I think. because this is where innovation is birthed. Then it move on to say that from above, I mean, from this presentation, it can be concluded that biomass is a green source of energy in recent times. And of course, not just recent times, we've seen the Stone Age people using combustive waste to produce energy. So this presentation also indicated that thermochemical and biochemical technologies for the conversion of biomass into different energy products were started decades and decades ago, including even a century if you go back to combustion. Now, the biomass conversion technologies gained momentum recently due to the fact that it is clean, sustainable, and a renewable source of energy, which the fossil fuels are not. So thank you guys for lending me your ears, and I'd like to hand it over to Esther. Once again, my name is Kevin Moranga. I was your presenter for today. For those who missed the introduction part, my background is in forestry, environmental sciences, and of course, the clean energy sector, with a 4-year experience working both as an intern and also in the corporate world and in this world of science. So thank you so much. Now I'll hand it over to Esther for the next bit. Thank you.
My, oh my, I have to say that I have really learned a lot. And I can also see on the chat, everybody's like, they had a great time. They were your session was very interesting. I can see Cleophas says, awesome presentation. Abdallah says that is his field and he's very interested in the session. So thank you very much, Kevin Morango, for that. And I have to say that you simply understood the assignment. So I'm gonna move on to the next session. I am sure also our panelists, since they are all experts in this field as well, they have something to say as well. And I think I'm gonna start with Thanda Rubainu. Take it away, you can give your contributions to our guest speaker's presentation.
Good evening from Nigeria. This is Thanda Dauda. This was a very wonderful presentation. And I think it has broadened our minds to see the uses of biomass in our utility of our energy. My own contribution will be based on the lectures that was done. We all know that from the wide usage of biomass, we know that is anaerobic bioconversion that is mostly being used around the world. As digesters, mostly people use it behind their homes for gases. And the technology is getting more and more usage by people day by day. And with the high cost of energy these days, people are going to the usage of biodigesters for their gases and for the use of, especially for cooking gases. And they can also use it to generate electricity in their homes. And that's a very high energy efficient gas that is being produced. We also have the gasification process. That's the gasification process, which is, I think, the most viable and which would be the most, I would say the one that is commercially viable process among all the processes, which if you look at the conversion based on the efficiency, it could be used majorly for commercialization when it comes to industrialization. And we also have the what will I call it, the fermentation process, which is mostly used for in the energy generation when it comes to industrialization, especially in the production of sugar. I think that will also be very good if it could also be utilized to be injected as smart grid systems for general usage. I think that was my contribution. Thank you. over to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Thanda, for that. We move on to Ebenezer and Diego. The floor is all yours.
Please confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is Mr. Ebenezer Anyadiego. Of course, the speaker, our guest speaker has said it all. We are here to give one or two contributions. It's a wonderful presentation so far, and I'm also very excited to learn more about this biomass energy technology and conservation. So still on that, few things I would like to contribute in what he is basically on the generation of biomass. You made mention of about the generation of biomass. So I just want to talk about the generation. If you talk about the generation of biomass, there are three primary ways by which you can convert, generate energy that is stored in biomass. The first one is burning. Just as the speaker has already said, the biomass can be combusted into furnace or a kind of combustor to produce a hot gas. Because one of the reasons of this workshop is for us to know more about how we can generate this energy. If possible, can use it locally in our homes or in different places, not to reduce our carbon footprint. So through burning, we can produce a hot gas, which is then used to generate a steam. That particular steam now is what drives the turbine. And the turbine now is connected to the generator, which produces the electricity that we use. That is how we can now use it in terms of our electricity. For example, the wood pellets that is burned in industry boilers. You can see that it is used to generate electricity in places like in Europe, just as the speaker has made mention. Another one is bacteria decay. He made mention of it. As I said, we're just trying to touch more of what I have said to buttress this more. So he made mention of about bacteria decay in terms of anaerobic digestion and bacterial breakdown of organic matter, just like animal manure or food waste. It's another way of generating it. In absence of oxygen, we produce biogas, mainly methane and carbon dioxide, as he said. Methane and carbon dioxide is what gives us that biogas. So the methane can be captured and be burned to produce heat and electricity. For example, now in Netherlands, they country like in Netherlands, they have implemented numerous anaerobic digestion plants that utilizes farm waste to produce biogas, which is converted into electricity and heat. In Africa, we can kind of adopt some of these particular methods in order to increase how we use energy efficiently and decrease burning of fossils, especially in rural areas. Now, the conversion of can also be converted to gas and liquid fuel. That is the same biomass. Biomass can also be produced. You can process it into liquid fuels, just as the speaker said. Example, bioethanol and biodiesel or gases like syngas, which is a mixture of hydrogen and carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, that is CO, carbon monoxide. Through this process, we can now get something like process that he mentioned, like gasification, pyrolysis, or fermentation. And if I want to give an example now, in US made use of it. US produces over 60 billion gallons of this bioethanol annually. That is the primary way they use, and it is primarily gotten from the corn, which is blended with gas oil to power vehicles. So we can also adopt it in order to power our vehicles. So without wasting much of time, let me just stop here. This is my little contribution in this. Thank you, Mr. The moderator.
Thank you very much for that. As you can see, we're still learning, and I believe we have a lot to learn as well. Then the last remarks and contributions, I give the floor to the Tuhatsi Rafaelo. Yeah, I can see the screen is sharing.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and we can also see your screen.
Well, I just wanted to highlight one key thing that our speaker spoke about, which is why we should be developing.
Rafaela, sorry for interrupting. Absolutely, yeah. I wanted to tell you to put it in the presentation, but you did it. Okay, great. Go on.
Yes, I don't want to take a lot of time, but I just wanted to highlight why this topic was selected for today. For us Africans, there's a lot of reasons why we should be focusing on biomass conservation. Like our speaker already said, the technologies have not really been developed because of the advent of this fossil fuels. And it is the primary mode by which we power our livelihoods here in Africa. And the reason why we also have to focus on better efficiencies, as our speaker hampered on, is that there's a lot of inefficiency that is going on with the way that we're traditionally using biofuels right now, with some really, really bad impacts, like those deaths due to indoor pollution and the increase with which we have to go and collect firewood. And most of the people that go and collect firewood are very young boys and girls. They have to go further and further each year as the cover decreases due to all of this impacts of climate change. So I just wanted to just give my take. The statistics are very clear that we need, this is, instead of bringing in new technologies that are not be able to be uptaken because they are foreign to us, it is better for us to focus now on using the biofuels that have already been used in Africa since long before the advent of SDGs. There is a very newness with which we want to discover new things, when in fact there's nothing new under the sun. And what we need to focus on now is to increase the efficiencies with which we have already been getting energy. I see our time is already up, so I will not go into further details on that, but thank you so much to our speaker. He really touched it all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I would like to request Moses, please. Would you mute your mic, please? Moses or DeLuca, I hope you can hear me. Would you please mute your mic? Perfect. So I remember when we started this workshop series, we really talked about sustainability, and I think today has allowed us to really dive into a specific SDG, which is affordable and clean energy, and our guest speaker has really put it out in a very, very understandable way, I would say, and very informative as well. I can see people are saying that they've really learned a lot, and I would want to move on to the Q&A questions, and we're going to do it in two parts. So allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to go back again to the panelists. I'm going to ask them a few questions, which would a little bit allow us to understand more. And I really particularly like that our last panelist, Rafaela, has really given us, I mean, the numbers. Sometimes the numbers really help to put things into light, into perspectives. And I mean, I am studying in the field of sustainability as well as rural development economics. And I am sure, in as much as we have had a conversation of how we can do the conservation and of these technologies, I mean, we also have to put in the aspect of sustainability as well. And I mean, we all know that for a strong sustainability system, then we need to have like three aspects. We need to talk about the environment, the social perspective, and also the economic perspective. So I would like to go to our first panelist, Ebenezer. I would like to ask you, 2 to 3 questions. And I think the first one lies more on the economic perspective. So, I mean, it really looks good, but how expensive is it to produce this biomass? And onto that, and also what are the environmental benefits that we have? We have seen that most continents have really geared a lot into, there's a wave of conversion into these technologies. I know as Africa, we're lagging behind, but it's something, and it's promising as a good future ahead. But what are the environmental benefits to this? And maybe how can this biomass energy conservation contribute to rural development in our communities? Ebenezer. Thank you.
Thank you, the moderator. It's an honor once again to come in to share into this particular point of view mentioned. Okay, now talking about the environmental benefits of biomass energy. Of course, biomass energy offers several environmental benefits and advantages, especially compared to fossil fuels, which is all this burning of this fossil fuel, these other ones we use. Biomass have an upper hand over them. For example, the first one is a reduction in greenhouse gas emission. Using biomass helps to reduce greenhouse gas emission, like in carbon neutrality. Biomass is often considered carbon neutral because the carbon dioxide, which is CO2, released during combustion is offset by the CO2 absorbed by the plants during their growth. For example, now you can see, just as the speaker said, there is what we call the photosynthesis, or that anaerobic, the carbon 2 oxide now is being absorbed in the process. Why not entirely free of emission? Biomass energy as well contributes significantly less to global warming than other fossil fuels like coal, or the other oil, and the rest. So that is it. Then, for example, now I normally use a practical example. When you talk about this, I can give an example in Germany. In Germany, we have bioenergy account for a significant portion of a country's renewable energy. It supplies it's the kind of supply. It reduces carbon 2 or carbon 4 oxide emission by approximately, based on statistics, approximately 67 million tons of energy that is being conserved annually. So you can see that it has environmental kind of benefits. I can also add that it helps to decrease the reliance on fossil fuels. You know that fossil fuels, as we know, is non-renewable. Of course, very soon it can kind of finish. But this biogas, knowing very well that biomass energy is from what we got from a kind of plants and animals remains, which we can recycle. Another way of environmental conservation by recycling it. It always comes. So biomass can replace or reduce the need for all this coal and other these things and other natural gases. So that is it. For example, in UK, they make use of it. And then in terms of sustainability, of course, we have what we call sustainable waste management. Biomass is the key to that. So biomass energy allows us for conservation of organic wastes, such as all these agricultural waste we can get from farms and others, food waste, and as far as forestry byproducts. We can now use it and convert it into energy that is used. And also it reduces lesser or smaller greenhouse emission. So this not only reduces the amount of waste we have in our landfills, but also it provides a renewable energy source, which we can now use in our cooking and lighting and other activities. For example, in the use of agricultural residue in India and even in Africa, like in Kenya, biomass power generation helps to manage waste for crops like tons of sugar cane and others. So now talking about the costs, of course, the biomass energy is also a kind of based on the one you want to generate, because it depends on the one you want to generate, whether you want to generate it for heating, for cooking, or the one you want to convert it in terms of biogas for electricity, depends on the one you want to do. So that will determine what the cost. But of course, to generate it is a little bit costly. But you will not compare the cost with the environmental impact of burning of fossil. So that is what I have to say there. Let me just drop here so that my colleagues can also have time to contribute their own. Thank you, the moderator.
Maybe before I let you go, would you talk a little bit about the contribution to rural development in our communities as well?
Okay, if you talk about the contribution to rural, if you talk about the contribution to rural development in our community, of course, as I said earlier, in terms of development, as we're talking about, the major problem we have in Africa is energy. What I call it epileptic energy supply. Knowing very well that energy is the heart of economy, is the heart of development. When there is no energy, if we talk about energy, I mean sustainable and renewable energy that can be used in terms of lighting, electricity, in terms of cooking, in terms of transportation, and all of these things. So in the villages or in the local communities, using biomass, in fact, we also increase their ability to work, to leverage on a better energy, as well recycle their waste. Of course, in the local communities, they have enough ways of getting biomass, knowing very well that you can get it from all these plants and animal remains. So that is it. So there's a kind of there's tendency that biomass technology we help more in the rural development, where they use it for lighting, where they use it for cooking, in terms of green cooking, the technology aspects, using of it. So that is what is there, like Kenya and some other Africa, as I've mentioned before. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. I like the fact that you particularly said that like energy is really the heart to any economic development, which is absolutely right. And I would just like for a few seconds before we move on to our next panelist, I can see on the chart that Tatahoti says that biomass burning is already in use every day in rural areas, with large generational plants cannot be afforded by the individual. Smart stores with improved efficiency can reduce the amount of biomass used. That's right. I also see Dao Yusuf. He says that there, in regards to the economic cost, there's a limited economic opportunities because of poverty issues. Yeah, absolutely right. I want to go to our second panelist, Tatohatsi Rafa Olu. And I mean, we have had very good things about biomass conversion and all that, but I'm pretty sure it's not a bed of roses. So what are the challenges with regards to biomass energy production? And is it actually possible to integrate this technology into other existing renewable energy sources? And maybe you can also talk about how biomass energy would contribute to energy security, particularly in our continent, Africa. Yeah, Raffaello?
Rapolo, thank you very much, Esther. Starting on your first question being, what are the challenges? There are a lot of challenges, especially with the kind of plants our speaker spoke about. They tend to be very big and very large and require a lot of investment. But for smaller investment can still be made for smart stores that are a lot more efficient and can burn longer and protect or prevent a lot of time in the collection of biomass. But there's also, when we go into biogas, you know that we have, there's potential to produce biogas from our sewage. Now, another challenge is the perception, that we are eating essentially what we pooped out. So it's just there's a lot of cultural challenges in just making sure that people understand that methane is what we're using and what we're producing, and that nature in itself is cyclical. So there's a lot of barriers in terms of this sewage kind of energy sources, which is something we have to overcome. But other than that, there's also the question of money. We don't really have that much money in Africa, which is something that we have to collaborate on. Like right now, I'm talking to you, I'm in Lesotho, you're in Kenya. There's grants that we can be applying for with a lot of nitty-gritties. So I think there's a lot of collaboration issue that is lacking as well for us to really fully realize the potential of biomass, other than just the perceptions, because those can be overcome the minute that people see it being used, when we can effectively, with money of course in place, pilot successful rural villages where we are able to reuse our waste and reduce our carbon footprint. You also asked on, well, what was your second question? I forget now.
I can absolutely remind you. I asked how can biomass energy contribute to
my network
security?
is so bad now.
Can you hear me?
Hey, you're back now. My bandwidth is so low, which is why I don't even have video on.
No worries. It's all right.
Yeah.
I asked about the how can biomass energy contribute to energy securities, because we are aware that
thank you very much for reminding me. Biomass as an energy resource is already in use in our villages, and we have been raised on it. So it already contributes about 50% of our energy resources in Africa. The question now that we are addressing is its sustainability. It can absolutely contribute to energy security as it already is, but it's the question of sustainability is where our conversion technologies now come into play. And when we have those conversion technologies, just like building a dam for hydropower is not cheap, building a plant for all our conversion technologies won't be cheap either. But the question now is how can we keep on using our biomass the way we are doing now, which is not sustainable. So it can absolutely contribute to our energy security. It already is by over 50%. What we are now gearing into is changing the sustainability of it by having all of those plants or one or two that are large enough in municipalities from our sewage and from our agricultural fields. We are absolutely able to contribute to our energy security and fit into the grid where there's centralized grid, just like hydropower does, just like solar does, and just like wind does. I'm a bit old now. I know there was a third question. Oh God, I'm not hearing you. Can you hear me? Oh God, I can't hear you.
Yes,
we can hear you. Esther.
I can hear you all now.
Yeah, you said there was a third question.
Can anyone hear Esther? I'm not hearing Esther.
Perhaps estimated groups of the call.
I'm sorry. I think I was on mute.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just my connection. Okay, the last question now.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I went to, you had a little bit tucked into it, but maybe you have something else to add. I had asked how you can integrate it into other energy sources.
We absolutely can by having just like we have in hydropower, we can absolutely have our substations that take energy from bioplants and turn it into electricity where that is necessary, or we can have it be to feed into our heating, a centralized heating system. So it's absolutely possible. It's just a matter of research, as our main speaker has said truly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very informative, I would say. And I mean, we have to keep in mind, she has really emphasized on the idea of sustainability. And I mean, we all know from the definition of sustainability, which we did at the very beginning of this program, where it's the ability to provide for the current generation without compromising for our future generation. And I think we have gotten at a point in life as a planet where we really need to think twice. And I mean, we kind of need to change our ways, because if we do not, we are probably going to destroy our planet, which we live on. And I like a quote in our university that it keeps reminding us that we really don't have a planet B. It's this one, and we have to take care of it. So moving on to our last panelist, Engineer Sada Rabainu. Our guest speaker had talked about future prospects of biomass energy. I would also like you to a little bit expound on that as well, because I believe there could be other ways in which we can move forward. And also, how can we encourage our communities to adapt this? Because we know that, I mean, it's already there, but it's not well adapted in our communities. How can we engage our communities and them to be willing to participate more by using these technologies? And what exactly, how does our government come in? I mean, Rafaela had mentioned about regional corporations, but even in our own countries, how can our governments promote these technologies? Thank you. Take it away, engineer.
Okay, thank you very much. I will start with the future prospects of biomass energy, which we all know that is quite promising in several ways. And with the developments, technological advancements, we could improve the efficiencies of the biomass conversion. I could say an example is the gasification process and the pyrolysis process, which have actually, the technological advancement, they have actually increased the efficiencies which they produce and improve the output and reduce the waste that is gotten from such processes. Then we are now talking about the second and third generation biofuels that we talk about the food sources, such as algae and agricultural residues that are being produced. This will reduce the competition on food production, because normally when you get to get those food from food sources, it increases the competition. Like using of maize, instead of it to be used, channeled into consumption by humans, is now being channeled to energy production. But using such things like algae and agricultural residues, it will reduce the use of the food sources. Then we have integration with other technologies. Like now, biomass is going to be easily integrated with other technologies like solar and wind, creating a hybrid system. Then we now have the sustainability of sourcing from the feedstock. Because normally from all these, from the biological, what will I call it, plants that we're using, so there's surely going to have to be a circle effect, that what we are being produced, we have to replace it back to reduce the destruction on the environment. Then, as we all know, that biomass is considered as a carbon neutral, is considered as a carbon neutral source of energy. So I think with the advancement of such technologies, will build on such. And now governments are now taxing carbon production. So with the use of biomass, it will reduce the pricing, the prices of the carbon consumption that have been placed on such. Then we now have the economic factors. We all know that this will create jobs for people, especially those that are in the rural areas. Then cost competitiveness. With more people going into biomass production, we'll get to see cost reduction in the production of energy. Then when you talk about our second question now, we talk about how do you encourage the communities to adopt such energy source, that's the biomass. First of all, is through education. We cannot do without enlightening people on the use of the biomass, because most people don't know, apart from the normal ways of burning charcoal, burning wood, which we all know that it emits a lot of CO2, which is not, but with government introducing projects that they could see with their own eyes, they will be able to be encouraged, okay, this is it. And another thing government will do again is giving incentives. When you give incentive, people will key into such energy process. Then we now have, when you talk about I was just talking about the government roles by promoting such energy, that's the biomass. First of all, they have to do with creating favorable policies for it to be able to develop. Then another most important one is research and development. Each government has to be able to key into such energy and keep on researching and developing ways to promote such energy usage. Then the government have to actually develop infrastructures in place so that it will be easily integrated with other uses, with other energy sources like wind and solar energy. I think that's what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I think now we're gonna move into the second last part. I have really been enjoying this conversation, and it's now a Q&A to our audience for today. And I would like to request Christine as request, in case I miss out on any question, kindly you can hop in and tell me. But I'm pretty sure you guys have learned a lot, but you might have as well some questions to our speaker, to a panelist. So kindly you can raise your hand or type it out in the chat. And yeah, so if you have a question, please, you can raise your hand or put it out in the chat. I'm sure you guys have learned a lot. Oh yeah, that's right. I have one hand here. Aliyu Kolu, go ahead. Aliyu, we cannot hear you. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, great. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, my name is Dr. Muhammad. I'm also an environmentalist, and I can see most of my students in the university are here with you guys. So I really appreciate what Kelvin have done. He has done justice to this topic, really. It's a good one. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can, yes.
Okay. Kelvin has done justice to this program, and the topic is very nice. But as I told my student just a few days ago, I'm a lecturer about sustainable development in the environment. And I told them just few days ago, we're discussing on this particular topic. And one of the students raised a question. He was telling me, sir, why can't we just be like Europe? It was quite funny. Like, why can't we be like Europe? And I told him, I said, look, we're Africans. We've always been Africans. But the fact is, many of the environmentalists are actually forgetting the fact that the world is in politics. And a lot of this political will in Europe and the West are actually affecting a lot of the policies we think might be beneficial to us in Africa. Okay, take a look at Afri-Exim Bank presently. With their help, we're able to work on something CNG in Nigeria. We're trying to do away with fossil fuel, and it's something that is really working well. But believe me, for the past 6-7 months, we've decided an order from Europe. They've been giving us challenge. Why? Because the Europeans are the main beneficiaries of whatever we earn within Africa. So a lot of what we discuss here, our discussion, I think, is on the right track. But we should also be as well criticizing what we see, in the sense that it's not really butter and bread the way we see it, really. Even if we have people that can actually make it work, to what extent are we free to do it? That is one. Then secondly, Kelvin raised the issue of still this same biomass technology. You know, the topic was like, I was thinking we're discussing on biomass and then looking for technology that we can really adopt within ourselves. You know, reading at this literature, these people have really worked on. Some of them are not applicable to us, to be honest with you, because the financial constraint is not something that is available at all the time. So why can't we adopt something within our own system? We have a lot of them. There's someone that is working on potato as a source of renewable energy. There is one man that is also working. He used water to generate energy. A lot of the Europeans came and they were surprised, you know, how is he doing? So within the African continent as well, we can look for other sources where we can adapt it and create it ourselves. Because depending on the Europeans, literature reviews, research being carried out, you know, it's not really something that it's really applicable that much in Africa. Just being on the critic side, you know, just to add up flavor to what we're discussing here. And I think I will still go further. Probably later, if I get more questions, I'll throw in by God grace.
I really like the positive criticism there. Yeah, it's true. We really need to pick up something that is quite adaptable to where we live and what we have. And I am pretty sure the Plant Village Kenya are doing something of that sort. And maybe Kevin Maranga, you can talk about it. Yeah, and I can see that we have 3 minutes left. Yeah, Kevin, go ahead. You can.
Sorry, Esther, but what exactly is the question? I think I missed something in between.
Oh yeah, right. There was an issue raised on adaptability, like adopting things that we already have, and I believe that Plant Village Kenya is doing something of the sort with biochar, right? Maybe you can talk a little bit about it for like 1 minute, because I'm seeing we're out of time. We just have like 2 minutes.
Thank you, Esther. Well, what you're doing with biochar is actually trying, it's more of settling the carbon footprints and less of things to do with biomass energy technologies, because what you're doing is that you're converting a lot of agricultural waste and of course invasive weeds, like we have the problem of Prosopis juliflora. This is a weed, it's a perennial wood that is affecting the South Rift of Kenya in areas known as Baringo. So what Plant Village is doing is actually coming up with technology to actually do away with these weeds in terms of now drying and combusting them, like we saw when we were discussing now the thermochemical conversion technologies. And in this now, the main goal is actually to settle the carbon footprints. And coming back to this, these things are actually related. Climate change, sustainability, carbon, they're all related. So primarily with Plant Village, it's not really about energy conservation, but it's more about settling the carbon footprints and actually trying to provide solutions to the farmers. And speaking about adaptability, the technologies are quite expensive. We're looking at, when you talk about conservation matters, we are looking at companies trying to bring in drones, UAVs in terms of conservation, which has to do with the protection and management of what we have. And in this case, we have our forest. They're bringing in a lot of money in terms of, tourist visits, research, a lot of entomology being done around. But now where do they actually reinvest this money? This is something that, one of the challenges, we could have delved into challenges. When I talked about carbon taxation, when I talked about, emissions trading systems for these fossil fuels, there's a lot of investment. I saw someone talk about geothermal. There's been a lot of investment with geothermal. It's very workable in Kenya because there's a lot of steam in the North Rift, South Rift. The whole Rift Valley has a lot of these things. But now, where is the, accountability in trying to make these things work and bringing what is adaptable to the farmers, to the, the population, which is growing by the day. And of course, there's a lot of pressure in these sources of, biomass. given that largely it's wood-based. And well, I see there's something about time coming up, but to try and answer that, Plant Village is not really about well, as it's one of the secondary products while trying to coming up with these technologies, but primarily it's more about settling up down the carbon footprints of these huge companies, like competing for the X prize and so on. So we are trying to adapt these technologies because there's a lot of investment in what you call the Contiki kilns. It takes a lot of money to invest one of those. These kilns are the ones that are being used to combust these raw materials or the feedstock. In this case now, the prosopis, which is very woody, it's very bulky, so it needs a lot of energy to actually to combust. So installation of this machinery and technology is quite costly. And the byproducts, have you seen, we're trying to come up with technology to make this biochar more meaningful to the farmers, much as, we're bringing in, conservation questions and so on. So it's much of a conservation issue and carbon issue and climate change issue than a sustainability, with energy issue.
Thank you very much for that. Unfortunately, we are already 2 minutes past our scheduled time. So if you happen to have any questions, kindly you can put it out on our platforms in WhatsApp. And if there's any specific question that is geared to our guest speaker, you can put it out there and we will be kind enough to forward it to him. And we will give back the feedback of what he says. So that I can see a question in the chat, and maybe this one is gonna be the last one. So how do government policies and international collaborations influence the development and implementation of biomass technology in African countries? I think Engineer Thunder had mentioned something of that sort. Would you like to expound a little bit more? That's a question from Laura Osman.
One of the ways that government could help and international bodies could help, first of all, as we all know that biomass production, the process is sometimes quite expensive. So they could actually give incentives in which, like grants for research purposes, for people to be able to come up with cheap methods that are able to use such technologies. The another way, again, the government can also help is through regulation. First of all, most of the equipment that are being used could be imported and can be compacted in a way that it could be developed and used in households, especially like the anaerobics there's the digesters that they could use to produce in the homes, to produce cheap gas. That was one way. Then another thing again is tariffs. When those things are coming in, it could be subsidized. It could be so. Then we have what we call investment tax. Those countries are coming to invest in such technologies in the country. If there are tax subsidies that are given to them, it could also drop the pricing when it comes to this. Then we know that international bodies always give money grants for research purposes to government. That could also help in coming up with processes that could actually reduce the cost of developing such. Then we now have already we have international collaboration by governments due to trying to reduce the carbon footprints in Africa, especially because of as a third world nation, we know we don't have much money. So their collaboration, especially we have organizations like FAO, that they are also collaborating with governments around the world, like in Zimbabwe and I think in India also. Then government could also bring standards in which for everything that they are doing, there should be standards in which such process could be gauged, so that such processes will come out better than what it was, so that we would actually reduce our carbon footprints. Then I think another process that the government should also do is the feedstock that they are being consumed. It should also be replaced. There should be control measures that those feedstocks that have been taken out should be replaced. I think that with that, it will also help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope the question has been answered. I would like to mention that I don't think we would have been here today without our team leader. She has really done a great job to put everything all together, to bring us together, to organize this whole event to a success. And I would just want her to give concluding remarks. Yeah, and I think that will be the end of our conversation today. Christina Tupase, kindly, just a few, like 1 minute, 2 minutes, please.
Thank you so much. Wow, this has been so beautiful. Essie, thank you so much for moderating our session. Our panelists, we are so grateful, and it's good that our panelists, even our moderator and our guest speaker, everyone is in the field. They are working towards sustainability. It is so beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest speaker, our panelists, our moderator, as well as the participants tonight and the ADEV team. Thank you so much for being here. We are very grateful. Special thanks, of course, goes to Mr. Moranga for the beautiful presentation, the incredible masterclass he has given us on biomass energy conservation technologies. It has been beautiful, very knowledgeable. I know each and every one of us has been impacted. We've looked at the different, ways that biomass energy can be made and conserved and utilized. It's been very exceptional. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we're going to continue having more interaction with Mr. Moranga. Thank you very much. Thank you, the participants, for being here tonight, for the questions you've asked, for engaging with us, and for staying us until the end of the presentation. Thank you so much. Special thanks, of course, to the ADEV team for allowing us to be part of this SDG mentorship program for 2024. And for my team, this has been the Clean Energy Advocates, that's SDG 7 group for the 2024 ADEV Fellowship. You people have outdone yourselves. This has been perfect. And this has been the first workshop actually in this series. I know we have set the bar, and I know we have set an example for our fellow teammates on the other SDG teams. Let's take this knowledge, we've listened to what biomass energy conservation is, the opportunities and challenges involved. Let's put this knowledge to use, and let's make sure that we reach out, we spread the word, and where we can lobby our governments. We've looked at how government involvement is important in policy making and international collaboration. It's key. So let's do the lobbying, let's do the spreading the word, let's do the education in our communities. Actually, personally at home, we do have a biogas digester, so we do some of our cooking using that. I know that it works. I know that it can really put us on the train of ensuring that we achieve sustainability and achieving the SDG goals generally. Thank you so much to our guest speaker, our panelists, our moderator, as well as ADEV Africa. Sustainable regards to us all. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Kristen. So once again, I have been your moderator, Esther Mithamo. Thank you for holding it out for us during this whole conversation. My apologies, we are 9 minutes out of our scheduled time, but I think the conversation was quite interesting. So have a good night, have a good day from wherever you've joined us from. I have been your moderator, Esther. And don't forget, you guys are the future of tomorrow. So own it. Go and make us proud out there. Bye-bye. I think in German we say tschüss.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
You close.